everyone. Welcome to Ad Age Remotely. I'm Alita Stam, Senior Agency Reporter at Ad Age. Thank you so much for being here today. Joining us is Madonna Badger, Founder and Chief Creative Officer at Badger Agency. Madonna, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks, Alita, for having me.
Before we get started, for those watching, if you like what we're doing here at Ad Age Remotely, please like, subscribe, share, or retweet this post. Now, jumping into it, Madonna, you've been very passionate about the space women have in the advertising industry for years. Can you tell me a little bit about why this is something you focused on? Why are you so passionate about it?
I think, in 2016, when we did Women Not Objects, it was really about sort of honoring the, idea that a woman's mind is of the same value and respect as her body. And so it didn't make sense to us as to why some women, were giving blowjobs to sandwiches and other women were CEOs of companies. And so we really wanted that it was time to stop treating women just as objects. And we brought it to Cannes because, I knew that if I could bring it to Cannes and talk to those creative directors from all over the world and explain to them the harm that this was causing women, children, even, of course, men as well, to see women this way, that they wouldn't want to do that anymore. And it was very successful, so successful that we were able to change the rules for the jury so that if a woman or a man was objectified, just in the same way that if it was an ethnic slur or anything of that sort of gravity, it was equal to that sort of gravity, that the work which showed a man or woman objectified would be disqualified. And that has been, in place now for 6 years. Next year will be our 7th year.
And you've continued to work on these issues, particularly around Cannes as well. You're a chairperson and ambassador for the See It, Be It initiative for 6 years now. So why do we still have the need for programs like this?
It's an interesting question. I think that it's so important that for us to really acknowledge and include young women as being a vital part of the advertising industry. And certainly of our creativity. And what this program does specifically is it brings 15 young women from around the world, literally from everywhere, and they are able to experience Cannes as if they were, sort of top of the charts, an agency owner or a holding company CEO. And what this does is that it allows them to go through all of the feelings, the emotions, the excitement, the feelings of ambition, feelings of clarity, feelings of everything. And while they're going through it, so that, it's that as I see you, I see me, right? So if I see women in power, even now, I believe men in power, I believe gender is falling, as being something less and less important. But certainly women in power, it allows me to say, oh, I can do that, or I can be there. And so I think it is very important because 15 quickly becomes 30, quickly becomes, 45, it just multiplies. And now we have a worldwide program where these young women are bringing, other women into their agencies and into their lives and showing them what they learned, what's possible, etc.
After all of these years, how much change have you seen, the impact from a program like this?
I mean, it's been, I think the only way that I can experience impact is how I experience it, right? So it's hard to see your hair grow, you know what I mean? And so, but I think that the greatest way, I think this year, I really understood at a whole nother level the importance of inclusion. So for a very long time, and I think this was true, that we needed sponsors, we needed mentors, we needed people to really take care of other young women to help them find their way. And this year it was different only because what we talked about was the sort of uh, anxieties that they felt or the difficulties that we felt, but we twisted it and we had different speakers come in who were amazing. Josie Paul gave us a incredible hour and a half on creativity. It was really an amazing group of people. But what I think what I was able to discover is that it's not about me. It's about the fact that we have to take care of them. That it's not about being a mentor or a sponsor. It's about having inclusion that exists within the agency infrastructure. And so that, that's why so many, the latest Lean In report and McKinsey report states that so many women leaders are leaving our industry because they can't see forward. They have no one to look up to. And of course, this has a, horrible effect all the way down the generational ladder. So I think, that we have to see that they do suffer more than we did of anxiety, or at least they're talking more about it. And so it's our jobs to not only help fill in the blanks and say, hey, look at what you did here. Look at what happened here. Look at this. Let's multiply that. Let's really talk about the ways that you were able to, knock that creative problem out of the park and have, a worldwide group get behind you. And I think that for me was the first time in the last 6 years, or a unique time, shall I say, that I really saw them change right before my eyes. And I saw them see themselves differently. And that was very exciting.
For those who may not have known, this year's theme was Know Your Power.
That's correct.
So why was that message so important right now? Was there anything that really surprised you about this year's cohort of women?
I think that, sometimes as women, we think our power is our anxiety, or we think our power is the how we've been defeated, or how we have suffered. And so my message to them is, you can't be the victim of your own life, that this is your life. And if you choose to be the victim of it, you're not going to have a really, very meaningful time here on this earthly plane. And so that was really the idea behind Know Your Power, was like, yes, I feel anxious. How can I move that anxiety to a place that isn't less than, but is instead, oh, all these women have anxiety. Oh, all the women within my sort of, part of the company, are suffering from anxiety. And when we come together and when we talk about it, we can change it. And I think that's a power that is, so important, that we aren't alone, that we aren't alone in whatever we're going through. And that, the only way out is through. And that's painful and it's hard sometimes. But I think that, when you have other people in your life that have gone through that, whether it's, a best friend or a stranger or, a colleague, that makes it all the more sort of doable, and to see it in a new way.
I feel like you're speaking like right to my soul. Totally understand that. So is there anything that hasn't changed? Is there work that still needs to be done?
I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done with women, especially. I'm still completely shocked by the fact that we, are responsible for 80% of the purchases in this country, somewhere around 80%. And still people want to call me a woman-owned boutique, or like they want me to just do women's stuff. And it's like, okay, I'm controlling all the purchases here. Like, I just want to do cool creative. Like, why are you going to pigeonhole me? I don't want to pigeonhole me. And so I think that, a lot of different ethnic groups, a lot of different genders, beyond, sort of white males probably, feel like that, I don't know, that, feel like that we are a part of society. We are a vital part of this world. We are a vital part of the ad industry world. And so it's really important that our voice is heard, because just in the same way that you said to me, you spoke to my heart, right? That's what selling is. That's what, hey, it's like, hey, you know what? I love shampoo. You love shampoo. Like, it's like, let's make shampoo. Great. Let's make everybody, you know what I mean? It's that kind of thinking of the universality of things, as opposed to a way of picking us apart and making us into these segmented groups that I don't think really have, any merit anymore, except that that's the way things have always been done. And, that's obviously not what we want.
For those of you, just reminding to everybody tuning in, don't forget to let us know where you're joining us from. Share this post if you can. That'd be great. So, Madonna, you mentioned that Badger Agency gets pigeonholed often as a women's agency. How do you respond to people that say that? How do you break out of that sort of mold?
I don't know if it's necessary. I don't know how necessary it is to break out of the mold. It's like I'm sure Black people don't walk up to people and say, "Hey, I'm Black." Like I don't have to walk up to people and say, "Hey, I'm a woman." And so I think, like, it that it's what happens in people's minds, and so it's very hard to change, very hard to determine, exactly what's happening on an emotional basis or an intellectual basis, et cetera. So I think we just, my goal has always been to do the best possible work that gets the best possible results. And for me, results comes from sales. And I've been very determined my whole career to make sure that that's how people judge me. And that for me is what makes what it's a great equalizer, right? Because somebody spending $1 on something has no idea where it came from. They just know that they were, intrigued, et cetera, by it. And so that's my goal too, is to do the best possible work.
Got you. So speaking of that, what's your focus for Badger Agency for the rest of the year and into 2024? Is there anything that you're really looking to dig into?
I am, I just brought on Caitlin Ewing, who is a fantastic ECD, had been at Gray and at Havas. And I feel like that the time, when I started this company 30 years ago, independent boutique agencies were like all the rage. Everybody had to, sort of hire one. And so it was great. It was a great time for me to be in business. And what happened is time passed and everybody forgot about that. And so now I feel like we're entering a new age of the independent agency. And so, my company is very specific in that we work with multi billion dollar brands, who want to reach their consumer in usually a new way. And so because of that, because of their how, usually very, very gigantic big they are, they've only ever worked with, sort of these WPPs of the world or Omnicoms, et cetera, that they can mirror their structure. And so by us having worked with these multi-billion dollar brands and understanding how to work with their infrastructure, that puts us in a really interesting place to be able to do great creative in a place where there sometimes is a little too much bureaucracy, right?
Yes.
So having said that, that bureaucracy also exists, on the other side of the brands. Those mega giant holding companies are in a position where they have so many directors that they have to pay, so many light bulbs that they have to switch on, that, not meaning that the people are light bulbs, like the actual physicality of it is so big that their profits have to be so large that it really becomes not about the industry, it becomes about the money, right? And so for me, and I think for other people like me, it is about the work and it is about the industry. I think what David Droga has done is never, ever let his eye off the bouncing ball, which is the creative. So, that sort of in a way, holding company mentality, that sort of independent agency mentality is, if you are not successful, we are not successful. And I think that's really what has made us into a successful brand. A successful agency, and has allowed us to stand apart from those bigger places. That is the future, as I see it, as that, there are these insanely creative, very, very smart people that have worked within that holding company mentality, and they get further and further and further away from the work. In fact, they don't touch the work at all. They're just in meetings trying to figure out how to, be as profitable as possible. And so I think that what's interesting moving forward is that we need to get back to the work, that the most seasoned people, the people that really love the work in every single way. Now, other people love the holding company idea, but for us who want to move companies forward, change the purpose, change life in many ways with, the UN sustainability that's going on right now, the UN week, all of those things are going to be left up to independent companies. And people don't want the price of their goods to rise because they have to pay so much to their ad agency. That just makes no sense whatsoever. So that's how I see the future, is that the creative becomes more and more and more, as it should, the center, the pinpoint of what it is that we all want to be great, and what we want to use to, serve the companies and the people, quite frankly, that we work for.
Which is a lot easier said than done. So how do you sort of cut through the mess? How do you keep the creative fresh? How do you stay at the forefront where, these large multi-billion dollar companies are picking the Badger agencies over the WPPs, the Omnicoms, the holding companies?
I mean, you said it. It's, by keeping the creative fresh. It's that simple, really. I mean, we are in the business of creativity. We are in the business of creativity. And so it is our responsibility when people hand us a check to make sure that we're doing our jobs as best that we can. It isn't so that people get, a creative team that used to be 12 or 20 or 100 gets shaved down to 10 and are asked to do the same amount of work simply because there have to be deeper profits at a holding company. That makes no sense in the world of business, and we are business people. And so I believe that it's, for me, it's how I want to serve up my company to brands, and for them to understand who we are and what it is that we can offer, that far surpasses what it is that you can get, for a calculated rate that is way below what it is that they should be paying based on their fee.
You talk about agencies trying to do more with less, and I feel like one of the ways that they're trying to accomplish that is through advancements in technology. Everybody's talking about AI right now; it's the hot new
Mhm.
thing. What do you see the future of AI in agencies looking like? Is it truly going to be transformative, or is it just kind of a new toy to play with?
I think that it, like everything that humans create, are tools for the most part. When you're talking about, sort of hardcore things like AI and Adobe Photoshop within our computers. So yeah, I think that it's a tool, in much the same way that when Google came out, Google was my tool of how to look up things and understand the world and see what was happening. This is on a much greater extent, obviously, but it's the next giant tool. And, I think that we can use it to understand our consumers better. We can understand what's happening in creativity. We can understand and see our own mind at work and ask AI to help manifest that vision or help manifest that creative. You know, it's like, you know, basically, yeah, it can make pictures and it can write press releases, and I think that's fantastic. But the reality of it is that who we are as an industry is, you know, a joined group that has to come together and creatively feed one another in order to build, to build, to build, to build. Everything we do, you know, is based on the team. And, you know, the team can be gigantic, but it's still a team. And, you know, I don't see that happening right now with AI. I think that there are probably much greater minds than mine that understand AI on a whole nother level. And, you know, I can't wait to hear what they think about it. But my feeling is right now it is a tool for all of us to embrace and use to make our jobs even more interesting and more effective.
Okay, and we're just about out of time. Before we go, I do want to take the time to shout out some of the people watching: Mary Rose from Illinois, Larissa from New York, and Elizabeth from New Jersey. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in.
Is it
I
I
think, go ahead.
No, Larissa has Lysol. I just noticed that.
Always branding. Um,
Yes.
so before we go, though, I want to ask you just one more question looking forward. I know we talk a lot about the future, but how do you see women impacting the future of advertising? What does that really look like to you?
I think that women, you know, it's like we watched how women impacted the world of politics and how it, you know, went from just being giant groups of white men to a whole nother way of looking at diversity, not only gender, but also ethnicity and skin color, et cetera. And, you know, women generally, I'll say, open the way for all different types of groups to come through. That has been true in, you know, many, many instances politically. You know, the suffragettes, for example, you know, were able to bring a whole new form of diversification of people and groups into voting. So I think that that will continue, is that, you know, we will learn as we have, you know, through this pandemic and now the aftermath, we will learn how to better work from home. We'll learn how to, you know, take care of our families and still have, you know, amazing jobs in leadership wherever we are. So, you know, I think women pioneers are usually the leaders, and the women who are then coming up in the next phases are also pioneers in how to make it work.
It's a tall order, but I think if anybody can do it, we can.
Yes, 100%.
Well, we are out of time. Madonna, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope everybody enjoyed tuning in. And as always, thank you to our Ad Age crew, Lauren Chiardio, Anna Sakula, for making these remote leads happen. And thank you to everybody tuning in. Thanks again, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.